This presentation is based on the dating and relationship program Love Traction Lines by Simone Myers. Are you stuck with a guy who has the Shifty Eye Syndrome? Or maybe you're in a relationship with a man whose neck would break to get a peek at anything with legs. Meanwhile, you're collecting dust over in the corner, wondering if he'll ever see you that way again. You might not realize it just yet, but when it comes to love, men are actually pretty straightforward. Heck, I'm sure by now you've found that men can be pretty darn predictable, especially when it comes to intimacy. It's this predictability, actually, that I'm going to show you how to use and harness to date to have him going almost wacko just to get a peek at you, and to be near you. It might sound impossible right now, but there's only one thing you need to remember when it comes to men and love. Simplify, simplify, simplify. It's often when a woman tries to make things too complicated, or when she tries too hard that men lose interest or become too confused to know how to react or respond. It's this reality, actually, that has many marriages ending in divorce, and many more middle-aged women unable to find a man or even get a date. At the end of the day, when asked, many men admit that their ideal relationship is one that involves simplicity. No crazy desperation, or intense mind games, or never-ending arguments. Just the basics. With a little bit of edge to keep things interesting. So how do you add that fine line of edginess into a relationship, without overcomplicating things? Well, it's simple. You use the mousetrap method. I bet by now you're sitting here going, huh? What the heck is that? But I'm glad you're asking, because this technique is about to completely revolutionize and simplify your love life. The mousetrap method is simple, because it can be applied to any stage of a relationship, and it does one thing, and one thing only: it makes a guy go completely gaga for you. I've literally seen guys turning down supermodel-type women, just to rush home to a woman who has used this technique on him. I've even seen extremely dry relationships go from dead to bursting with intense passion within the span of just a few short weeks, under the same premise. So to say that this technique will help you, is putting it lightly. It will save you. So I bet you're wondering how it works? Well, when a guy is checking out other women, or when your man loses interest in you, like most women, you probably thrust yourselves toward him, practically begging for attention. Right? Like most women, you likely don't realize when you're doing that either, or to what extent, but I can guarantee you've done this numerous times, if you're dealing with a man who has the Shifty Eye Syndrome. In cases like these, where a man's attention is not solely on you, or where he has withdrawn from you emotionally, he's become an emotional ghost, it actually can completely ruin your chances of ever having a man love you like you desire if you push yourself toward him. Then, simply put, don't want that. That's the overcomplication I was talking about earlier. A man wants to feel free to make his own choices about how he feels, and when he is feeling how he feels. Men absolutely hate it when a woman tries to take control of his emotions and of his attention forcefully, especially if he's already communicated that he wants his distance. In that moment, he's simply not hungry. Like a little toddler who refuses to eat even just one smaller mouthful, much to a parent's frustration, a grown man works similarly when it comes to love. If he doesn't want it, he's not going to take it. The key, therefore, is to make him hungry for it. Wait it out, much like you would with a mousetrap and a piece of cheese. If you try to bring the cheese to the mouse, he'll run away. But if you leave it for him, when he's ready, and hungry enough, he'll come get it. He'll even come get it from dangerous locations, if the hunger is strong enough. And that, ladies, is the key to the mousetrap technique. Leave the bait, allow him to become hungry for it, and let him take it. It doesn't have to be extremely complicated or confusing. It's as simple as that, because men want to be in control and want to be the deciders, especially in a relationship or when attraction is involved. Their natural instincts make them desire the chase, and the hunt, which men ultimately find rewarding. Remember, if you are trying to push or force his attention on you, he'll have nothing to chase, because the reality is you are the one chasing him. It's as ironic as trying to catch a mouse by running around with 100 chunks of cheese and throwing them at the mouse. So, I bet by now you're wondering how this whole mousetrap technique works. The process is simple. Here is how the mousetrap process works. Step number 1, wait. When he becomes an emotional ghost, or withdraws from you, even if you've just met recently, or have known him for a long time, wait. Don't hurtle your cheese at him, hoping he'll come around just because you've got a treat. Be patient. This quality is actually one of your biggest allies when it comes to winning in a relationship, because a man cannot block or run from a patient woman. When a woman doesn't fight what he's doing, there's nothing for him to force back in retaliation, so he gives in. This is true especially if you're dealing with a man who has shifty eyes, or who often appears to long for other women whether outwardly or in secret. If you're not forcing yourself, there's nothing for him to fight. There's no reason for him to find now to ignore you. Step number 2, set up the cheese. The cheese, obviously, is you. You're the bait. But you're not going to throw yourself at him. You're not going to break into little pieces to try and see if this or that would get his attention. No. You simplify it. You wait, then you bait. How do you bait? That's simple too, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit, but for now understand just this one simple thing: your job is to wait for him to become hungry. Which he will. If you allow him the opportunity. Step number 3, let him take a bite, but make that bite so deliciously tempting that he'll want to come back again and again. This is where you show him what he was missing, which sounds complicated as well, but I promise you it's actually pretty simple. Now that he's told you he's hungry for you, it's actually very easy to tempt him and keep him hooked. The key is to use an open loop of attraction to do that. What's an open loop? Well, it's essentially a never-ending wave of emotional buildup, wherein a man continuously builds up emotional excitement toward you, until he feels he can't take it anymore, and explodes that excitement onto you. This loop then repeats again, just like a wave coming back and forth to the shore. So now you must be wondering how to set up the cheese, and make him take the bait? Earlier I mentioned that I was going to show you how to bait him. And I bet you're also probably wondering how to open a loop that'll keep him hooked. The how is actually very simple. You do it by using secret little love spells. No, these aren't those corny voodoo spells you're probably thinking of, but rather these are carefully crafted hypnotic lines. Follow the link below to see what I'm talking about.